Chapter 17 Lady O'Hara Wins Her Point Part 1 of Black Moth by Georgette Heyer Read for LibriVox.org into the public domain. Lady O'Hara looked across at her sleeping husband with no little severity in her glance. He was stretched in a chair beneath a giant oak, and she was busied with some needlework a few paces from him. O'Hara's eyes were shut and his mouth open. My lady frowned and coughed. She rasped her throat quite considerably, but it was not without effect. Her spouse shut his mouth and opened one lazy eyelid. Immediately my lady assumed an air of gentle mournfulness, and the eye regarding her twinkled a little, threatening to close. Molly looked reproachful and began to speak in an aggrieved tone. "Indeed, and I do not think it at all kind in you to go to sleep when I want to talk, sir." O'Hara hastily opened the other eye. "Why, my love, I was not asleep. I was thinking." "Do you say so, sir? And do you usually think with your mouth open, snoring?" O'Hara started up. "I'll swear I did not snore," he cried. "Molly, 'tis a wicked tease you are." "Miles, 'tis a big baby you are," she mimicked. "There is a caterpillar on your wig, and 'tis on crooked." "The caterpillar?" asked O'Hara, bewildered. "No, stupid, the wig. I'd best straighten it for you, I suppose." She rose and stooped over him, settling the wig and removing the caterpillar by means of two leaves, judiciously wielded. Then she dropped a kiss on her husband's brow and sat down at his feet. "First, you have never asked me where I was gone to all yesterday afternoon." O'Hara had been carefully broken in, and he now knew what was expected of him, and he put on an expression of great interest. "Where did you go, my lady?" "I went to call on Miss Bowley and her niece, sir." She looked up at him triumphantly and a little challengingly. "The devil you did!" "Certainly, sir. I knew that there was something in the air, and I remembered your letter to me saying that Jack was in love with Diana. So I thought I would go and see her for myself." Miles looked down at her half indulgently, half vexedly. "Did you, puss?" "I did, and I found that she was in love with him as well as he with her, of course." "Of course? Who could help falling in love with him? He's so monstrously captivating, I would like to marry him myself." She bent her head to hide the roguish smile that had sprung to her lips. "I beg your pardon?" asked O'Hara, startled. My lady traced patterns on his knee. "Provided, of course, that I had not already married you, Miles." But O'Hara had seen the smile. He heaved a great sigh and said in lugubrious tones, "There is always the river, madam." My lady's finger wavered and stopped, and her hand tucked itself away into his. "That is not a nice joke, Miles." He laughed and tweaked one of her curls. "Sure, and did you not ask for it, asthore?" "Of course I did not. But about Jack, dear." "I thought it was about Jack." "Miles, will you be quiet and attend?" "Yes, my dear." "Very well, then. As I've told you, I drove over to Littledean yesterday afternoon, and made the acquaintance of the Miss Bowleys." "And what did you think of them?" "I thought Diana was wonderfully beautiful. Such eyes, Miles! And such hair! Miss Bowley is very amiable and so droll. I drank a dish of tea with them, and spoke of Jack. Madcap! Never tell me you called him Carstairs." "No, you great baby, of course I did not. As it chanced, Miss Bowley mentioned him first, and she called him Mr. Carr. So I did too. And I noticed that Diana said scarce a word about him, and when she did 'twas of the coolest. That, of course, made me all the more certain that she loved him." O'Hara was plainly puzzled. "But why should you be certain if she did not speak of him, Alana?" "'Tis what you'll never understand, my dear, because you are but a man. But no matter, I knew. I quite adored Diana, and determined to talk to her alone. So I admired the roses, and she offered to escort me round the garden, which was what I wanted. We went out together. I think Diana must have liked me, for—" "Nonsense!" "Be quiet, Miles, for she dropped her ice and became quite friendly. And I talked a lot." She was aware of a convulsive movement above her, and a suppressed cough. She raised inquiring eyebrows. "Well, sir?" "Nothing, asthore, nothing. Go on with the tale. You were saying—" "That I talked a lot." She paused, and her eyes dared him, then she dimpled and dropped her lashes over them. "I shan't tell you all I said." A relieved sigh interrupted her. "And if you continue to behave in this disagreeable fashion I shall not say another word about anything." Having satisfied herself that he was not going to venture a retort, she continued, "We had a long chat, and I gathered, from all she said and left unsaid, that Jack, for some foolish reason, will not ask her to marry him." "Foolish reason, asthore?" he interrupted. "Oh, I know you consider it a remarkable fine reason, but I tell you 'tis rank cruelty to that poor child. As if she cared about highwaymen! 'Twas not so much that, I take it, as— Yes, but he could tell her he was innocent. Oh, Miles, do not look so provoking. Of course he could. I vow if you had treated me so, I would never have let you go until you had truly repented. I am of a mind to speak to Jack. 'Twould be an entertaining sight, but ye'll kindly have a care how ye touch him, my lady. He does not understand. I know she would be proud to marry him, and ye'd think it a fine thing in Jack to ask her, the way things are with him at present. Oh, I don't know. No, my love, Jack is right. He must first clear his name. Then, gracious goodness me, why does he not? Cried Molly, exasperated. This time it was O'Hara's turn to look superior. Well, Alanna, that's a question you cannot hope to understand, because you are but a woman. Lady O'Hara ignored the challenge. But what is to be done? Naught. He will have to work it out himself. He bound me to secrecy some time ago, or I would be tempted to speak to Richard. I quite hate Richard, she cried. He must be a selfish, unkind person. And now Jack swears he must go away almost at once, and— Oh, you should have seen Diana's face of despair when I mentioned that he was going abroad again. Miles, we must keep him here as long as we ever can. Oh, dear, 'tis all very worrying. She broke off as O'Hara pressed her hand warningly. My lord was coming across the lawn towards them. I am in dire disgrace, he said. I was left with your ferocious baby, Molly, and to quiet him I gave him a string of beads that you had left on the table. My precious wooden Indian beads! Yes, I believe so. Anyway, the paint came off, and when Jane returned David looked as though he had had some horrible disease. She was most annoyed about it. He sat down in Molly's lately vacated chair, and carefully wiped a daub of green from his finger. Molly laughed. Poor Jane! She will have such a task to clean him. But you've arrived most opportunely. We were talking of you. O'Hara groaned inwardly and tried to frown her down. You were? I am flattered. May I ask what you were saying? Why, that we do not want you to go back to France. O'Hara breathed again. That is very kind of you, my lady. I regret the necessity myself. Are you sure it is necessary? You might just as well live in a nice place near here, with a dear old woman to keep house for you, and Jim, and lots of pleasant things. My lord shook his head. No, thank you. Yes, yes, and later on you could choose a wife, she continued audaciously. Not at all. There would be no choice. I should be made to marry the dear old woman. You would bully me into it. End of Chapter 17, Part 1. Read by Sabella Denton. For more free audiobooks or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.